This enlivened film begins with Peter Parker, voice of Chris Pine, presenting himself as we probably are aware him, the amicable neighborhood insect man. At this point, everyone knows how enormous he is, what with saving New York continually, getting his own comics, grain, and, surprisingly, a Christmas collection. He has a few things he's not pleased with, the emotional dance, for one, yet he accepts his obligations as Spidey gladly, as he is the all-in-all. We meet Brooklyn youngster Miles Spirits, voice of Shameik Moore, as he is preparing to begin going to a tuition-based school. He lives with his dad Jefferson, voice of Brian Tyree Henry, and mother Rio, voice of Luna Lauren Velez. Miles circumvents his local hello his companions and labeling road signs with stickers he made. Jefferson, a cop, gets Miles and escorts him to school in his cruiser. As they ride to the school, they see a news report on Bugman, whom Jeff don't really like. When they show up, Jeff tells Miles he cherishes him, yet Miles neglects to express it back. Jeff then, at that point, utilizes his radio to compel Miles before the wide range of various understudies to say I love you back, humiliating him. Miles gets into his homework as he attempts to change in accordance with this new climate. During one of his classes, he meets Gwen Stacy, voice of Haley Steinfeld, who doesn't promptly let him know what her identity is. Afterward, Miles escapes his quarters to visit his uncle Aaron, voice of Mahershala Ali, who is Jefferson's sibling and a kind of odd one out because of his crimes. Miles enlightens him concerning Gwen, and Aaron instructs him to do a shoulder contact to attempt to enchant her. The two then, at that point, go to the passages close to the metro so they can do some spray painting, since Aaron is enamored with Miles' work of art. As Miles' shower paints the walls, a radioactive misfiring insect creeps up his leg and nibbles his hand after Miles snaps a photo of his work. However, he just gently taps the bug off his hand prior to leaving with Aaron. The following day, Miles discovers himself feeling in an unexpected way. He hears a voice in his mind, which is joined by comic-style text boxes, his garments scarcely fit, and he is perspiring plentifully. He runs into Gwen, who attempts to make up a phony name when they appropriately present themselves. Miles attempts to do the shoulder contact, yet he just stalls his hand out on Gwen's shoulder, and afterward her hair, driving them to need to go to the medical caretaker for her to trim her hair off. At the point when Miles has a go at returning to his room, he is found by a safety officer who calls him out for leaving his residence. Miles frantically makes tracks in the man's office, stalling everything out to him as he continues to go ballistic. He moves through the window and ends up strolling on the walls prior to running into the roads, astounded by his newly discovered powers and capacities. Miles later goes to the passage where the insect messed with him. As he looks at it, it begins messing up once more. Not long later, Miles stows away as his bug sense recognizes risk. Bugman enters as he's being sought after by the Green Troll, voice of Yorma Tacone. The battle takes them underneath Fisk Ventures where Wilson Fisk / head boss, voice of Liev Schreiber, is endeavoring to fire up a super collider. In Spidey battling Troll, he finds opportunity to move Miles. Spidey acknowledges Miles is very much like him, similarly as the machine is turned on. Outside in the city, certain designs begin to get abnormally transformed into different shapes. An impact happens in the passage. Spidey is severely harmed, and Miles attempts to help him, however Spidey advises him to conceal prior to giving him a drive to close down the collider. Head boss, Troll, and another miscreant, the Prowler, accumulate around Spidey and eliminate his cover. He asks Boss not to restart the collider, in any event, advising him to ponder his family, yet this enrages Top Dog and he kills Bugman by throwing his clenched hands down onto him, which Miles watches with sickening dread. He runs back home where his folks track down him, and he rushes to embrace Jefferson. The news breaks out that Insect Man is dead, and that he was Peter Parker. New Yorkers wherever are crushed. Miles purchases an outfit. The storekeeper is the voice of Stan Lee, no less, prior to going to a remembrance administration for Peter, with numerous different fans going to dressed as the wall crawler. Mary Jane, voice of Zoe Kravitz, conveys a tribute for her better half while Auntie May, voice of Lily Tomlin, stands seriously toward the back. Miles is motivated by MJ's words to accept the responsibility as Insect Man. He needs to try out his powers, yet he isn't exactly certain of how to inspire them to function. He later visits Peter's grave, similarly as he is spotted by another man, Peter B. Parker, Jake Johnson. As would be natural for him, this Peter lets us know that in his universe, He's been bug person for a really long time and is currently a grown-up. However, he's lost Auntie May and he was hitched to Mary Jane, yet is presently separated because of him not having the option to figure out his problems as Spidey, as well as him not needing kids when she did. He became discouraged and put on weight, and afterward the collider turned on, which maneuvered him into this aspect. Presently subsequent to finding Miles, he gets thumped oblivious, driving Miles to attempt to swing away with him as the police pursue them, just to wind up crashing in the city as individuals stroll past them. Miles brings Peter some place for security. He questions Peter with respect to how conceivable he's there alive, when he accurately surmises the other aspect hypothesis. Miles takes out the drive that the Peter of his universe gave him, which other Peter calls a booger, however it's wrecked. Peter liberates himself and takes the messed up booger to attempt to find another one so he can get back home, as being in this aspect makes him misfire and be unsound. Nonetheless, before Peter can head off all alone, Miles coerces him into allowing him to join so they can make things right together. Miles and Peter, wearing their ensembles, go to Alchemax Labs where the information on the collider is being kept. As they attempt to figure out how to sneak in, Top Dog and his cohort Gravestone, Marvin Crondon Jones III, and his top researcher, voice of Catherine Hahn. Boss's rationale in working the collider is to be brought together with his significant other Vanessa, voice of Lake Chime, and child Richard. Years sooner, they looked as he attempted to kill Bugman, and they escaped from him, just to be unfortunately hit by a truck. Miles and Peter figure out how to slip into the lab and track down the room with a PC. Miles begins blowing a gasket again as he can't unstick himself from the roof, similarly as Boss and his researcher are outside. Miles then, at that point, likewise figures out he can turn undetectable while he's terrified. The researcher then, at that point, goes into the room, constraining Peter to attempt to fascinate her. She is dazzled to find Insect Man alive, yet just so she can kill him herself. She then uncovers her name to be Dr. Olivia Octavius, otherwise known as DOCOCK. She uncovers her mechanical limbs as she goes after Peter, however Miles gets the PC so they can go. They are driven by researchers out of the lab and into the forest. The folks swing through the trees as the reprobates make up for lost time, however Doc Ock gets webbed up by a third bug person, Gwen. She tells Miles and Peter how she also has come from one more aspect where she was nibbled by a bug. There, she saved her dad's life yet couldn't save Peter. Them three then head free and clear to move away. Doc Ock later returns to Top Dog, who is exceptionally disappointed to find there are two more bugmen around. Miles, Peter, and Gwen to go Annie Mite's home, where she can sort out that the Peter she sees before her is from another aspect. She takes them to her Peter's old mystery safe house, which is loaded with various suits, devices, and vehicles. There, the three meet Insect Man Noir, voice of Nicholas Enclosure, a high-contrast old criminal talking legend, Penny Parker, voice of Kimiko Glenn, and her robot SP//Drive, which is fueled by a radioactive bug, and Peter Porker, otherwise known as Bugham, voice of John Mulaney, who was really a bug nibbled by a radioactive pig. Every one of them were pulled from their own aspects and into Miles' reality. They each arrangement to remain behind and shut down the collider with another booger so the rest can return home, however Miles says it must be him since this is his aspect. At the point when Peter attempts to uphold him by expressing the cool powers that Miles has, he can't turn them on and demonstrate to the others that he is fit for making a difference. Miles turns imperceptible and he dejectedly leaves the cavern. Miles goes to Aaron's home for help, similarly as Jefferson and Rio are reaching Aaron since they haven't heard from Miles in some time. Miles finds Aaron's condo unfilled, however at that point experiences Prowler inside, provoking him to go undetectable once more. Prowler addresses head boss and eliminates his veil, uncovering himself to be Aaron. Miles is shocked. He attempts to escape the loft however is pursued by Aaron all through the city until he figures out how to dodge him. Back at Annie Mite's home, Miles reunites with the other bug individuals to let them know that his uncle is working for Top Dog. Sadly, Miles has driven Prowler there, alongside Doc Ock, Troll, Headstone, and Scorpion, voice of Joaquin Cosio. The bad guys assault, and the insect public get a move on. Indeed, even Auntie May gets in on it by protecting her home. Prowler pursues Miles and pursues him to the roof. Top Dog orders Prowler to polish Miles off, until Miles removes his cover to uncover himself to his uncle. Aaron is embarrassed that he nearly killed his nephew. As he withdraws, Top Dog shoots Aaron toward the back and afterward goes for a significant distance, yet he swings out of there with his uncle. He takes Aaron to a rear entryway where he is passing on. Miles faults himself for what occurred, yet Aaron urges him to continue to push forward. Jefferson finds Miles over Aaron's body, sending Miles escaping. Jeff then sees his sibling and separates. Miles gets back to his residence where the other bug individuals get together with him. They make his flatmate drop from seeing them creep up the wall. Peter networks Miles up to his seat and takes the booger to go stop the collider, telling Miles it's for his well-being. After they leave, Jeff comes up to Miles' quarters outside, however he can't answer thanks to the web. Jeff informs him concerning Aaron and just wishes for a significant distance to be okay. Miles then, at that point, gathers up the solidarity to draw out his ability to free himself. Miles returns to Auntie May's and gets the first Insect Man suit, which he splash paints with dull varieties. He then tests his powers all the more with certainty as he swings around the city. The other bug individuals find Top Dog's occasion where they can sneak in on the grounds that the staff are wearing Spidey covers. Peter sees MJ and attempted to communicate his culpability toward leaving her, despite the fact that she doesn't have the foggiest idea about it's him or what's going on with him talking. They continue down to where the collider is, however Top Dog's cohorts track down them and continue to assault. Miles swings in and joins his friends as they retaliate. To exacerbate the situation, the collider is actuated, causing one more quake across the city as aspects begin twisting together. Insect Man Noir takes on Headstone while Penny and SP/Dr. battle Troll, and Bughem thumps Scorpion with an animation hammer. Doc Ock pursues Gwen and Peter while Miles attempts to close the collider down. The thugs are taken out, and Doc Ock is furrowed by a between-layered truck. Sadly, SP/Dr. is intensely harmed, leaving Penny crushed as Noir and Insect Ham solace her. She takes the insect back as they get ready to bounce back home. They say their goodbyes, and Penny goes first, trailed by Noir and Insect Ham. Gwen confirms her companionship with Miles prior to returning home. Peter attempted to remain back and help Peter, yet Miles decides to send Peter back so he can fix what he needs to do in his reality. Miles then, at that point, pursues the collider, however Head Honcho begins hitting back hard. He then, at that point, begins to see another Vanessa and Richard as their aspects begin crossing once again. Similarly, as Top Dog appears to overwhelm Miles, he sees Jefferson as he enters the region. Miles gets himself up and utilizes his ability to impact Head Boss away and afterward send him webbed up toward the button to close down the collider for good. Outside, Miles calls Jeff to tell him he's okay. He then, at that point, approaches him as Bugman and embraces him, telling him he's working effectively, yet not telling his father who he truly is. Jeff then, at that point, finds Head Boss webbed up and prepared for capture. Miles currently expects his ordinary school obligations while likewise taking on his job as the new Bug Man, procuring various new fans across the city. In the meantime, in Peter's aspect, he takes off to fix things up with MJ. As Miles gets comfortable his space for a rest, a layered entryway opens and he hears Gwen's voice calling to him. There is a devotion for Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. After the end credits, there is a scene where Miguel O'Hara/Insect Man 2099, voice of Oscar Isaac, finds out about the other bug individuals from his collaborator Lila, voice of Greta Lee. He goes to Earth 67 where he winds up in an unusual point in contention with the Bug Man from the 1960s animation.